Hi there, my name is Ruby Whitelaw. I'm one of the Practice Development Advisors at CYCJ. And with me today is...
Beth Ann Logan, co-founder and chair of STARR.
Okay, Beth Ann, I'm just going to ask you some questions as part of the STARR so far. So the first question, Beth, can you just tell us a bit about how you got involved with STARR?
Yeah, no problem. So I was asked to join the Secure Care Strategic Board along with another friend that has lived experience in secure care, to make sure that there was voice at the table and that we had an input over in the decisions that were going to be made. Very quickly we realised that two people's experiences can be really different, or they can be really similar, but they're not representative of the voices of the people that we seek to serve, so in this case our secure care experience community. So we then asked the board to give power to myself and my friend, to create a group of people with lived experience in secure care to be able to inform, advise, challenge and change kind of things, the pathways into secure care before, during and after, but also the decisions that were made at that strategic board level as well.
So who is STARR and what does it stand for and who's involved?
So STARR is a group for people of any age with lived experience in secure care, regardless of what that experience is like. So it doesn't matter if you were on remand, sentenced, or through the children's hearing system. And it doesn't stand for anything. STARR isn't an acronym, and sometimes people kind of struggle to understand why that is. But I suppose it's supposed to be like the guiding light. So when you think about a star, you see it as a guiding light and a force for good. And also if you think about how the universe moves around, but the stars still stay the same. So it's about making sure that the voice of a lived experience is pivotal and is front and centre of any further discussions, developments, like practice, policy, strategy. All that stuff is about making sure that there is lived experience right at the centre and right at the heart of that. There's been loads of people that's been involved before, and I suppose some people could dip in and out. We've got a kind of core membership of just now, we've got 3, including myself, so we're always looking to expand and include more members. But I think it's about making sure the timing's right for them. So there's also further developments that I'll speak about later that we're hoping to do, but yeah.
So can you just tell us a bit about some of the work that you've engaged in over the 4 years?
Yeah, no problem. So our biggest achievement from the Secure Care Strategic Board was nailing down the vision of the board. So we had a bit of an input into what the vision would be. I suppose the biggest chunkiest piece of work that we've done is the secure care pathway and standards. So we were involved right from the very start of that process, and there was some early issues within that because you're competing with different needs of the sector and the system. So some people felt there was a need for a certain standard and others perhaps maybe felt that there wasn't a need for it. And we had like a big development day where we sat and we kind of red, amber, greened all the standards. And I think we started off with like over 100 standards and we managed to narrow them down into like the 44 standards that there is. But we sat down and we red, amber, greened it, whether we agreed with it, whether we felt it could do with some tweaking or whether we fundamentally did not agree with it. And some of the conversations that were teased out of that were things such as searches and the use of searches and making sure that it's proportionate and not a one size fits all. And also taking into account that any trauma that young people could have faced beforehand. Another kind of gnarly issue that we came up against was kind of garage entry, and we pushed back a bit on the Pathways and Standards working group, and asked them to revisit how they felt a young person should be welcomed into a secure care centre and whether it was always appropriate to be via a garage or whether or not they could be able to go through the front door. So yeah, we've done the standards, we were also involved in the independent care review, and we kind of amplified their voices to make sure that although young people that enter secure care are often a marginalised group and it's quite a small number of young people in comparison to those in the rest of the settings of care in the care system, we felt it was important as a group of people with lived experience in secure care that the independent care review spoke about secure care and had kind of conclusions about secure care and the final findings of the promise.
So thinking about the secure care pathways and standards, what do you feel was achieved by engaging in this programme of change?
There was a lot achieved. So I suppose my favourite bit of it was being able to get into all the secure care centres and interact with young people. So we held a programme of events called From Me, For Me, With Me, and that included all the centres getting involved and getting their hands in, like, and being really proactive, and each centre did something different. So we had one session in a centre where they did kind of model building and what their ideal secure unit would look like, and they had like loads of open space, like green space. Animals was a big feature and stuff like that as well. With another centre that told a story through artwork, and painted an image of what it felt like before they entered secure care, what it felt like when they were in secure care, and what they hoped they would feel after secure care once they transitioned on. And we had a centre that kind of played game show kind of games, kind of build it or bin it. What would you build upon within secure care, and what would you bin about secure care as well? So that was my favourite bit of was getting to do that programme of engagement. But fundamentally, I think it was a step change for how strategic boards operate. I think it was a step change in making sure that voice is front and centre of that. I think it was an amazing opportunity for us to influence the pathways and standards and co-produce them, and be able to take ownership of that as well. There's something about having that ownership, being able to go back out and say, we listened to what you had to tell us, and here's how we've tried to make it better for you.
What do the standards actually mean to you?
The standards mean a lot to me because I suppose it's like my baby. I've nurtured it alongside many other colleagues as well. But I think it's fundamentally important as to how we see people with secure care experience and how they're treated. So I think that before bit of the standards is really, really important because it's about what practitioners and management should be doing with involving a young person, like including them in the process of what they should be doing before it gets to the stage of needing to enter a secure care building. So there's loads of stuff there, which I think is really important in prevention, and making sure that we don't need to restrict the children's liberty to keep them safe. The during bit of the standards is something that I'm really passionate about because although all the changes that we're kind of striving to make will never affect us, there is a bit of satisfaction in that about being able to say, well, we've influenced this and we've been able to change this for the generation just now and the generation to come. And things that were really important to me were things like the front door entry, because often I felt like I was a bit of a secret entering through a garage. Things like searches and making sure they're proportionate, something that's really important. But also as well the things that we don't always think about making sure that the space that young people are in, such as their bedrooms, have things that they like in it, like posters and teddies and stuff like that as well, and whether that be a book that they like or something like that. Things to make the transition a bit softer. And then the after bit for me is critically important because too many young people float through the system, and whether it's at a children's hearing or whether it's through the courts on remand or sentence, don't know where they're going after they go to a hearing or after they finish sentencing. And that's something that needs to change quite drastically actually. There needs to be more plans in place, better plans in place, and there needs to be a better ownership by practitioners to make sure that these young people know where they're going to live, and that's not a difficult thing to ask.
In what ways do you feel the standards have impacted on others?
So I think that the standards have impacted on others because practitioners are aware of them. So there's been an extensive programme of engagement with CYCJ, going out to local authorities to let them understand what this means for them in practice. The secure care centres have been working tirelessly on making sure that these standards are embedded. So they've changed their admission processes and how they take referrals and things like that. So that's obviously going to have an influence on how things are as well. And then the after bit about making sure that people are held accountable for where children are going. And I think that they're all making a difference because we've got hopes and ambitions of creating kind of little constellations of STARR in each centre where they will be able to influence and shape and advise on what and take ownership of where they live in that moment in time and what they think should be happening in the centre for them. And I think also as well that things like being able to get through the front door, like that will have an impact on people and how they feel. The things like searches will have an impact. Being able to feel comfortable in their own environment will have an impact. Things like furniture and how they're positioned, plants, lamps, things to make it homely, will have an impact on it as well, because at the end of the day, it's, for that moment in time, it's that child's home.
Can you tell us a bit about the work that STARR's engaging in at the moment?
Yeah, so we are kind of going to, obviously we've had the pandemic, which has made things quite difficult. It meant that we obviously had to move our meetings online and stuff like that. But now we're getting back together in a shared space is kind of, it's really invigorating actually to be able to bounce things off each other. And some of the things that we've been involved in is going back out to the centres and saying, right, are you ready for us to come back out? Can we come out and visit? Can we see the young people? Can we have a conversation with yourselves as management as to how STARR can help support you? Because it's not about being adversarial, it's about how we dovetail together and make sure that the best outcomes for young people are being achieved. We've got some upcoming work coming up as well with the care inspectorate hopefully. We also have the response to the Care and Justice Bill that we've submitted ourselves as well, and also our terms of reference and things like that as well, and just the constant recruitment drive. And then there was obviously the Young Scot Award that we won for the work that we've been doing across the sector as well, which was really nice to be recognised for.
Yeah, that was an amazing achievement, but don't forget the consultations that you're involved in as well, because you've been doing lots and lots of like consultation work as well, so that's been brilliant. Where do you see STARR's future?
So my hope and ambition is that we do go on to create those constellations that I was talking about. I'd hope for us to get more members, to be able to influence and shape and drive things forward. I would like us to be more involved and included in decisions that affect children's lives as liberties being restricted. But that has to be a partnership. It can't be an add-on. It can't be like, oh, can you come and kind of parachute in to be like, oh, we've decided about this, can you just come and do our input or things like that. So I think it's important that we're involved from the start of any programme and that people think about us and have the confidence to approach us, and also know that we're going to do the job well, because we've got a really good track record of being able to shift and change things and shift the narrative of how we talk about people, children whose liberty's been restricted. So I'd like a bigger presence within secure care centres. I'd like us to have more members. I would like the sector to see us as equals and all that we do, but also that opportunity to be able to work together on something as well, to co-create and co-produce. And essentially I want to keep that protected space of STARR being Scotland's only curated space for secure care experienced people, because there was nothing like it before, and it's been proven that it is needed.
Finally, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I suppose I would just like to put on record my thanks to the CYCJ, to you, Ruby, to Julia, for supporting STARR and our new endeavours. It's been difficult over the pandemic, and we're just coming over the hill of that hopefully now. And I think that the one message that I would like to put across to delegates at the conference today is that voice matters, and the power of a collective voice coming together can do something really magical, and we mustn't forget that.
Okay, I think that's a nice place to end, so thanks very much, Bethany.
Thank you.